about them Irish?
I can't take it anymore. I need a national championship.
This is the Four Horsemen podcast.
And we are unfortunately back 3 weeks without an episode, 2 losses in that time. I'm Dylan, joined by Steve, and we do have a special guest today we'll get to. But man, what a turn this season has taken. The Ohio State game, I don't even want to dignify that, has to be in the top 5 worst losses I've ever experienced in any sport. Might be number 1, actually, just the way it ended. And then, of course, we just got our shit kicked in by Louisville. Credit to them. They outplayed us. They outcoached us. Their fans brought the first sold-out game ever for us, I'm kind of monologuing here, but this is something I said yesterday. It's you could tell the team was emotionally exhausted from the start of the game because they've played so many ranked opponents in primetime week after week. But that's not an excuse. You come to Notre Dame for these reasons. You come to play good competition in primetime, and the team just kind of fell apart. And I don't know where that leads us, but we're going to get into it. And, of course, this week is the best week of the year. It's USC week. We got Buck Metrics from Twitter joined with us. So we'll introduce you now, Buck. You've been on the show before, but how you doing? Your Trojans are still undefeated, I see.
Boy, barely. Not by much, and don't want to spoil the whole pod here, but yeah, I'm not super impressed with my team. As sad as you all sound, I don't know. I might be there with you shortly.
We'll get into that. Steve, we'll pipe you in now. I'm sure you've got so many things to tell us.
Yeah, you said we were out coached, and I think we were out coordinated. Yeah, man, it's been a bummer. Yeah, like you said, it's been a tough couple of weeks. It sucks because after that Ohio State game, I was actually quite I was still pretty happy because thinking, this team really does belong. We really should have won the game, but just kind of didn't close out. I think ultimately closing has kind of been the thorn in the side of this particular group, and for whatever reason that may be, over the last 18 months now. But yeah, I mean, just. What we'll probably get into it at some point, whether it's now or at another point in time. But the play calling really kind of just gave the season away. That was a very winnable game. I saw something on Twitter that there was 3 separate drives that, that Louisville had, where the Cardinal had less than 10 yards on each of those 3 drives, but they came away with 9 points on them. And, if you just keep going, we weren't exactly 3-and-out machines, but okay, you get 1 first down, maybe 2 first downs, but then you can just never figure out a 3rd and short or a 4th and short, or you just, you can't get past midfield. And, I guess play action, they're not aware in the, in the town or village or municipality, wherever the fuck it is, of South Bend's. Play action is when you fake a handoff to the running back. You don't actually give it to him. The point is to try to trick the defense into thinking it's a run, therefore opening up somebody in the passing game. The fact that this needs to be explained in actual detail is befuddling to me. But I think that might be something that we want to talk about. Buck, you go by Buck Metrics, and you're a great analytics mind that we're going to want to get some insight into. So I'll turn over to you. Is play action good when it comes to like analytics and metrics and I don't know, any sort of statistical measure? Am I going crazy here?
I don't use play-by-play data, so I can't speak to that directly, but I can tell you that basically, the less multifaceted you become, the easier you are to defend, and your metrics go down. I'm probably not breaking news on that one, but I can definitely, we can start the therapy session now. Yes, Steve. You are correct. You're not mistaken. I feel your pain. I understand it. It's frustrating. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it now, but one of my questions was about the new offensive coordinator. And it seemed for a while that there's a little bit of Schadenfreude shot down the Mississippi River from y'all to Alabama, and the magic that Tommy Rees was working early in the season. Not to be a jerk, because it's going to get, chippy enough as it is. And I'll just make the pod mine. Thank you very much for the moment. And ask the questions here. Would you guys want to undo that trade, that transaction at the moment? Or are you happy where you are? Now, you can't go behind can't go with what's behind door number 3 here. Do you want to undo that trade, or are you happy with where you are at the moment?
That's a great question. I didn't want Reese to go in the first place, but I wasn't heartbroken when he left. And I've liked the Parker hire up until this week. I know Steve feels very strongly against it. I thought in the first 3 weeks, Parker had run a perfect offense. They were firing on all cylinders. Every year we do a somebody for Heisman campaign, and we actually legitimately had one for 3 or 4 weeks there with Hartman. He was playing out of his mind, and they were really utilizing him. I don't know how I feel if I'd go back and make that trade. Tom Rees has a place in my heart because he's a Notre Dame guy from when I was starting to get into Notre Dame. He was the quarterback. Steve, you're the coordinators, man. You're the one with the issue. My issues with, and I love Freeman, but my issues with Freeman after that game. I want to hear your take on that.
Honestly, I'm just looking forward to the Parker era being over, and I mean, sad. You don't want to call for another man's job, but just like get a job elsewhere, please. And it's the thing is with Freeman, and the reason I've been giving Freeman a pass personally, he inherited Reese. Basically, BK leaves in the dark of night, and all of a sudden you have a program in disarray, and then you keep any sort of longevity and just sort of normality to the program and familiarity to kind of keep the lights on, so to speak. So, okay, I was fine with Reese being around, and then exactly as you surmised is, okay, he left, and I was kind of okay with it. I was like, yeah, you know what, Tom, I guess, go chase your bag, and it is what it is. And quite frankly, I thought that it was time to really bring in the big guns at Notre Dame. I mean, again, it's Notre Dame. Like it was
late. It was late in the offseason, though. If I can just jump in there, right? We didn't get a chance to get the best of the bunch, but
yeah, continue. For sure. But it's Notre Dame. You have $1 billion. You just like $1 billion. You have $1 billion. So just go spend like 1/10 of that if you have to into just getting 1/100th of that to just go get your guy. So I figure, okay, let's go bring in like the top name, and okay, again, late in the season, or in the coaching cycle. So then we just kind of promote from within. So we haven't had a full blown off season where Marcus could say, I'm going to sit down with every single guy, go through your playbook, go through your game plan, look at the body of work that you've had, and actually go through that interview process from just a clean cut standpoint to go out and get his guy. He's always been put in really tough positions with coordinators. And I actually think that Golden's been pretty good. He hasn't been perfect, but Golden has been pretty good. I mean, that our defense did hold us in that game as long as they possibly could. But
the last 3 games, Steve, like the Ohio State game, they were remarkable until the last drive. They held us with Duke. I mean, there was this comeback in the second half there, but they held their own. And then I'm not faulting them for Louisville. If I can piggy off that, Steve, because I think there's a great point that's going to tie into USC as well. And that was Notre Dame has $1 bajillion. And I think the topic of the week today, or this week in the fan base, is the lack of support and spending for the program. Obviously referring to the Andy Ludwig hire/non-hire out of Utah, but particularly, and I think I don't want to spoil as well, Buck, but I think we're going to get to this as well and how the 2 coaches have fared in years 2. Your school has backed your football program unquestionably. The transfer game that you've won the transfer game. I don't think anybody in college football has done a better job in the transfer portal than you guys. You do NIL in a very high caliber way. You don't seem to be getting in any kind of trouble. And you're obviously bringing in high recruits. The Notre Dame situation is they're in NIL, but they're not promoting it. They're not getting involved the way USC would. They're in the portal game, but they're not active. And I think that's one of the big things through 2 years is your administration has done a great job of supporting the football team as they make their move to the Big Ten next year. And I think a lot of Notre Dame fans right now are just kind of looking in envy, being like, this is Notre Dame football. This school doesn't exist without the football program. What are you doing? Like, why are we not doing everything possible to win a national championship here? So just wanted to bring that up, and maybe that's a good segue for you, Mark, or Buck.
Can we just work back at just a few points on what was mentioned, just working backwards? Saying that our administration has done a good job, that's something that's not been said really in the last 30 years. So thank you for that. There's kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. We're acting like grown-ups now. NIL is an interesting thing for USC. I know this isn't a USC pod, so I'll keep it brief. You know, the NIL really is geared more towards proven players. There's not a lot of stuff that happens ahead of time. So, you know, we're losing some big recruits to bigger bag programs like Texas and Oregon. And it seems like for whatever reason, you guys are probably familiar with Modern Day High School out here.
Yep.
Yeah, that thing's just dried up, and it's really weird. It's probably a good opportunity for you all.
Well, we haven't been able to take kids out of Modern Day in forever, and that's a Catholic school that we should be taking kids out of, right? That's been your breeding ground.
Yeah. You know, I think the Andy Ludwig thing is interesting and frustrating on your end, I know. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if it's just resources as much as kind of brain power too. And that's not a slight at you as much as just administrators as general. As a stats guy, I can see bad hires coming a mile away. And the other side of that, I'm just going to throw out one of my favorite teams coming into the season. Texas State. They got G.J. Kinney, who was, you know, I think he was the head coach at Incarnate Wood for 1 year. Totally, I think they won one game last season against the FCS team. They won 4 already. Their offense is awesome. They're going to probably come in second place in the Sun Belt West, which was crazy. And that's not like it took a big bag for that. It just took diligence in figuring out and applying, you know, sound logic and math and knowing this guy knows what he's doing. So, you know, I don't know if it's as much a resource issue as much as maybe just is it the right people that are making the right decisions, or do they even know how to ask the right questions? And I say that as somebody whose program has, you know, been asking the wrong questions, you know, nothing more than where did you go to school and hiring based on that for decades. So lastly, the internal promotion to offensive coordinator, I'm just not wild about that at a huge program like Notre Dame. You can attract almost anybody. And it's a shame that I mean, you made a run at Ludwig and great, and that was a good idea, but you know what? Then go bigger. Don't go smaller. And going way back to Tommy Rees, the one thing to Freeman, you know, yeah, he did inherit Rees. I think the real limiting factor there for the entire thing that we really haven't seen until this year, and there's been a step forward, was that quarterback position that they inherited. Was just brutal. I mean, look at what Drew Pine and Buckner are doing this year. I mean, it's been embarrassing. It's embarrassing that those are your top 2 quarterbacks at a program like Notre Dame.
And Phil Jerkovich before that, who was just benched.
I forgot about that. Yeah, well, he went to tight end for like a day.
So someone had made a joke about cultural appropriation and tight end because he had, I don't know if you were around for this, Buck. He went to BC for a year or two and was really mad at Notre Dame for playing shipping up to Boston by the Dropkick Murphys. And he made an Instagram post calling it cultural appropriation of like Boston. And of course, our fan base has been doing nothing but ridiculing him for that forever. As to be fair, you know, he's not like a 17-year-old kid. He's like 23 when he had said that. And so when he switched to tight end, someone had made the joke that, well, he's appropriating Notre Dame culture now by being a tight end. Just a fun Phil Jerkovic sidebar.
My mouth is agape. It's unfortunate this isn't a video. I'm gobsmacked. I just
to highlight just the absolute chef's kiss that's been the Notre Dame quarterback position for the past 5 years.
Yeah, man.
It's a disaster. But the recruiting at a really high level at quarterback right now, 2 5-stars or 5-star adjacents are coming in. Hartman was a great pickup, but you're right. A program like Notre Dame shouldn't have trouble getting offensive coordinators or quarterbacks. There was a time, and in my lifetime, under Charlie Weiss, nonetheless, where Notre Dame could get any quarterback in the country, and they did it with Jimmy Clausen and Dane Christ, just years apart, both 5-star guys. And Gunnar, well, that was Brian Kelly, but yeah, Gunnar Keel, 2012, who ended up at 4 other schools. But yeah, I don't know what's going on there at Notre Dame. I have hope. I do want to segue this into Freeman, and I'm sure you have interesting thoughts because you were skeptical of the Freeman hire from the beginning. And I'm sure as the listeners could tell by now, this is not some USC troll. This is a really good college football fan, knows his stuff. We love having him on. I still like the Freeman hire. I've seen more improvements culturally in recruitment, in the way we play. We show up to play big games, which we never did under Kelly, right? We at no point were we close to beating you last year, but we fought that whole game. You have the best offense in the world at that point. That wasn't bad. Ohio State, we were leading for 3 quarters, and then Clemson, we blew the doors off them last year. This year, same thing. Like, I felt like we've been up to play every game. Last game was a little bit draining, but I like a lot of the improvements that I've seen. Now, there are some negatives, right? We couldn't count to 11 on the biggest play of the year. That's a problem. Maybe some of the hires have been a problem. He's just green, right? He hasn't been in these situations before, and I think you can see that because Notre Dame has found a way to lose games, especially with Ohio State. They found a way to lose that one. So I know you're a good coaching guy, as in you follow coaching trends really well. So what's your thought on Freeman, and how do you compare it with the Lincoln Riley era?
Well, the first thing that sticks out to me is whenever I'm evaluating a new coach, I always look for what I call proof of concept on his side of the ball. And a great example is Riley. By my metrics, he improved the offense at USC. I think we were just about a 0 being just FBS average for the year. And he improved them to about an 11 last year, which is just an amazing, just a huge jump on one side of the ball. And, USC is a great example of that, but you see it again and again and again at these lower level schools. It's just the best indicator. Year one, does the head coach's side of the ball get better? Again, all the way down to the Sun Belt, just again and again and again, just so easy. And I was a little concerned because Freeman in year one, the defense took a small step back.
Yep.
And I think part of that is, I just think realistically, Al Golden's not as good of a DC as Marcus Freeman. And then Marcus Freeman is dealing with all the issues of being a first-time head coach, which is why I just don't like that. It's hard enough doing that at Wake Forest where nobody watches. Doing it where you're on the NBC program, and then you get to go to ACC, schools where they all just want to beat the hell out of you because they hate you because you're kind of like them, but you're better than them, but not, the whole dynamic that you guys deal with all the time. There's just a lot to unwind there. And I think you're managing your first-time head coaching responsibilities, and then the way more media responsibilities. How are you going to help Al Golden? Now, you can see, I think, a big part of the improvement this year I've seen in year two with Freeman is there, which is really, really promising. So I've got hope for him. It's just, y'all need to be patient. And to that point, I don't know who made that decision on where they landed with offensive coordinator. I wasn't wild about it. If there are some constraints, shame on them. There should be, and not to make this about USC, we lost this guy, Mike Bone, who was probably one of the worst humans in athletics, which says a lot. He wasn't really the brains behind, the advances that we made. He had an assistant named Brandon Sosna. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I haven't, no.
He was his chief of staff at a couple places, and now he's actually in the Lions front office. And he's a metrics guy, and he has all kinds of data that, when they were looking, they said, yeah, we can get Riley. But here's the interesting thing. When they were at Colorado together, it was at Colorado or Cincinnati, Bone and Sosna, and Lincoln Riley was an assistant at East Carolina. He was on their list of guys to look at for a head coaching job.
Wow.
You need that external person God bless football coaches, and I'm not saying they're dumb, but they just look at things a different way, and they don't have the dispassion that you need to really say, what is the best thing I can do here that takes me out of my comfort zone, gets me into that creative tension that gives you, to go really old school, because I'm an old guy, like the Beatles, where you have Paul and John arguing and they break up, but they make awesome music because of that creative tension. Pete Carroll was forced to hire Norm Chow, and that was the USC you definitely didn't want to play. As soon as he left, you had a Pete Carroll guy there. It wasn't quite the same. And I think that's one thing that I would like to see more in that process, is really the external nerd like me. And this is not a promotion to, hey, hire me because I'm busy already. Thank you. Apply these kind of things just to figure out, who do we bring in that really is going to have a well above average chance of succeeding here. You don't know when you're promoting. He was a tight end coach, I think, your offensive coordinator. Yeah, you just don't know.
He did have OC experience at West Virginia previously, but yeah, it was a weird hire. It was just the whole situation around it. It was late in the process. The names on the table, I liked Moorhead at the time. That became clear he wasn't going to leave his head coaching position. We'll see. I'm curious if he'll stick around, because I feel like they could very easily justify him going back to just a tight ends coach. Yeah. We'll see about that. But Steve, I see you getting in here. I'll let you in.
Yeah, no, I mean, just exactly. I like Jared Parker as a tight ends coach, right? Like we have great tight ends, and they're coached pretty damn well.
Shout out Mitchell Evans, by the way. What a breakout years he's had.
Yeah.
We were all wondering who's going to fill in for Mayer, and it hasn't looked too bad, I'll tell you.
Some of the catches, man, have been like astounding. I mean, I'm just so like flabbergasted at like the fact that we have the tight ends that we do, and we still struggle to run the ball with Audric Estime behind that offensive line, and just very frustrated, man. But yeah, if it were a situation where Parker, it's hard to have a guy swallow his pride like that, but jump back and take a demotion down to TE, coach. Yeah, there's just no reason not to be arrogant in any capacity, but you are who you are, and it's the University of Notre Dame, and it's a top 10 program in college football year in, year out. That's just the fact of the matter, or at least in the past decade it has been, because we kind of have restored a degree of our former glory. We're just not all the way there yet, and then the reason we're not all the way there yet is because there just hasn't been like the put your nuts on the table, all your chips, just go all in. Just go all in. In terms of Marcus Freeman, you're absolutely right. He is a little bit green. He's wet behind the ears, and we see that. I'm not going to pretend he's infallible, but I've said this from the very beginning. If you listen back to podcasts, I would rather have him too early than try to get him too late.
Yeah.
There's going to be inherent growing pains, but he is the guy. Marcus Freeman is going to be right now he's probably a top 15 head coach in college football. I think he has the potential to be a top 5, possibly top 3 in college football within the next 3 to 5 years as he gets a little bit more experience. He's incredible. He's raised the recruiting profile. He has, we don't really come out flat in these games. Have we let games go in the second half? Oklahoma State, Louisville, Ohio State twice. Yes. Okay. So you have a finishing problem, but again, he's only really had his guys, quote unquote, on the roster are freshmen and sophomores. Everybody else above that is inherited. And look at the true freshmen, Rico Flores, Jaden Greathouse, that we've had that have come in and really contributed to this program. Jalen,
the best players have been the young kids. All season they've been the best players.
Benjamin Morrison, I mean, All-American. Like, come on, man. So like,
I've never seen a corner that good in my life as a Notre Dame fan at Notre Dame. I like what he does. He shut down Marvin Harrison Jr. the whole game. Like when they were one-on-one, he had like pick. Yeah, like that's crazy. So much you said there I want to get into, but correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Brian Kelly doesn't lose to Louisville. Brian Kelly doesn't lose to Marshall or Stanford. However, Brian Kelly doesn't beat Clemson, and Brian Kelly gets blown out twice by Ohio State, and USC both last year and this year would be cooking us. if Brian Kelly was still the head coach. What is that? Am I off base there, or is there some truth to it?
I think you're pretty much, yeah. Yeah, the inexperience has led to some lapses in games that we definitely should have won. Kelly, because of his experience, would have kept us in that, but Kelly was not up to the big ones.
I just have a hard time understanding that because, the guy literally won at every place before Notre Dame. I mean, he had multiple championships at Grand Valley State. He turned around Central Michigan in very short time. Dylan, when you were like 3 years old, I don't know if you remember Lefevre Fever, or I'm a Lefevre believer. Yeah, there was a Dan Lefevre. Steve, you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. He wasn't, I mean, it just, you don't have quarterbacks that good anymore. And then he goes to Cincinnati and right away he wins and he takes him to a New Year's Six Bowl. That was just thought to be absolutely impossible. And he was so good, he made people think that Butch Jones was a good coach just by, following him, which we see now what folly that was. And I have a hard time seeing that, just reconciling that with him not showing up. I don't know if it's that. I like my first inkling would be, is it a difference in talent? But is it, you don't flip the talent that much in year one, to your point, they did win the Clemson game last season. And I like these players just hate him and it only comes out at the worst moments. I don't know. I don't get it.
It's a weird one because he was a winner everywhere, and obviously he won a lot of games at Notre Dame, but the record speaks for itself. Notre Dame's performance in those games have been disappointing, and they've come out flat, frustratingly so. And I wonder if that has to do with coaching style, and maybe that changed when he got to Notre Dame a bit. I think in his first few years he was more involved, and then he's maybe taken a step back. I mean, boy, if they would have lost to, was it Ole Miss they played last week? Or no, it was Missouri. If they would have lost to Missouri, I think he would have been fired that night. So the Brian Kelly experiment in LSU is an interesting one, too. They're not happy with him. I've been seeing, maybe that's a little premature on their end, because he's lost to two good teams. Like Florida State, I don't think they're like the fifth best team in the country, but they're definitely a really good team, and Ole Miss is a really good team. So I just think that's the culture down there. I think Kelly's been okay at LSU. They've won some big games against Alabama, but anyway, I don't mean to bring Kelly into that. I just wanted to maybe bring that point up about Freeman, where he kind of has a bigger boom bust than Kelly. I think that's how a lot of the fans feel, but that could also be us. I don't know.
Well, yeah. And I think, sorry, one other thing too, just kind of on that topic and going back to the offensive coordinator thing, I think it's pretty clear that Freeman recruits at a higher level than Kelly. And I think if this thing can kind of unwind itself, to put it nicely, I think that maybe if you give it one more year, which you hate to hear, but basically if there's more proof of talent on the roster, you can probably, I don't know if attraction was the problem, but if you can identify who you want at the top level, it'll be easier to attract them as proof of concept to say, we've got talent here. And the other thing too is Freeman seems like a good gent who will bring you talent and is not going to interfere with the offense. I don't see him getting sweaty palms to say, I can't wait to coach this team like a defensive coordinator and make everything, every possession 3 runs between the tackles and punt. And that's considered a success because it's down within the 10-yard line. I don't see him as that way. So I think if they do it right, it can come out much better for y'all. It's kind of a weird spot right now.
Yeah, it's a weird transition because Kelly left the cupboards a bit bare. Like his last few recruiting classes before Freeman got there as a defensive coordinator were short in numbers. And you're seeing some of that depth issue. Look how many we had a walk-on like lacrosse scholarship player score a touchdown last week that none of us had heard of. That's how thin we are at receiver.
Not a big deal.
Shout out to Faison, right? Is that how we say it?
Faison, yeah.
Yeah, that kid's fast, man. He earned a scholarship already. Congrats to him. Welcome to the family of, Notre Dame. Well, he was already in it, but now we know of you, so we can sing your praise. Well, I think Steve knows him, but Steve knows everything, which is why this loss hurt him so much. For me, 2011 Michigan was like the closest to the Ohio State one. I'm still thinking of like which games hurt my fucking soul the most. For you, Steve, I imagine it's a USC game from about 18 years ago.
18 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. Bush put. Yeah, I would say honestly, I think you're right. I think 11. That was what Shoelace. What's it? Denard Robinson, right?
Yeah.
That one.
That was
the most
horrible.
Yeah. That one killed the most. Then Bush push. But I was still. I think that Bush push might have been my second year as a Notre Dame fan. So I was still, I was still young. I think it was like 14, 15. But yeah, and then the last couple of weeks have skyrocketed.
Yeah, this team finds no way to disappoint us. But USC's had a lot of ups and downs. And a question I have for you, Buck, do you guys know what defense is at all? And is it concerning to you that Lincoln Riley, no matter where he goes and no matter who he hires, can't seem to get a really good defense there? Not even a really good defense. He can't seem to get an average defense, which is what would be concerning me if I was in the USC shoes. Although when you have Caleb Williams at your quarterback position, does it really matter?
Yeah, well, I thought that he just brought in whoever produces this podcast. Is that not the case? Yeah, it's not fun. And to get really in the nuts and bolts, I'm not a huge X's and O's guys, but I remember when Grinch was the defensive coordinator at Washington State. The whole thing was his whole scheme was predicated on just penetration and causing problems in the backfield. And here's what's scary: he's actually it's succeeding. We're actually, I think going into last week's game, USC was first in tackles for loss and yards for tackles for loss in all of FBS, and we still have this horrible end product. And so it's just like an ill-conceived dish that needs to be wiped from the menu, and I don't know what you can do. And there's a big debate: is it just are guys in the wrong place to tackle, or can they not tackle, or are they allergic to tackling, or is it foreign to them? I don't know. I don't know that side of the game to know, where the miss is, but Jesus, there's a huge miss. I can tell you that.
Well, not to give you too much compliments just because you're here, but if USC had a good defense, I would say they're a national championship contender, because that offense is ridiculous. And you'll score points in every game. Nobody's going to shut you down. It just seems like, man, unless the other offense is completely incompetent, a la, Drew Pine leading Notre Dame last year, and even then we had some success. It's just like, it seems like the pieces are right there for you, and I don't know what's wrong. They brought in the right transfer guys. I thought that we would see improvement, and you're about to go through a hellacious schedule. Like, we think ours has been bad with the Ohio State, Duke, Louisville, USC run. You guys are going to have us and Utah back-to-back weeks. You got Oregon State in there. You play, I think, Cal in there, and then you've also got Washington, Oregon, UCLA to end the year, which is just like the Pac-12. It's a shame that this conference is being blown up, because it's by far the best conference in college football right now. In my opinion, I'd have all those teams ranked really, really high. I've been most impressed with your conference, and that's gonna be a real test for your team. And it starts with us, so I'm glad we get the first crack at you. But man, I don't envy that run.
No, it becomes quickly, is Notre Dame a trap game?
Yeah. Are we a trap game for you all? Just seeing as you guys were all in at Louisville last week, clearly. My gosh. You left out UCLA, who it's not really fun to say. I actually have them as the top defense by my metrics in the entire FBS. Yeah. Of the last back half of our schedule, 4 of the teams: Washington, we host; at Oregon, at Notre Dame, and we host UCLA. Those 4 are in my top 9 by my power ratings. Yeah, no fun, man. And so the easy ones are Cal and Utah. Yikes.
And Utah's been a stylistic nightmare for you in the last couple of years, which is interesting, because that should be a blueprint for Notre Dame on Saturday, which, by the way, I'm going to that game. So if any of the listeners want to meet up or something, shoot us a message. Maybe we'll try to make something work. Say hi to some listeners. I'm really excited to get back to Notre Dame. It's been like what, at
Decade.
least 10 years. Yeah, 2012 was the last time I was there. So just wanted to get that in for you guys. We've always wanted to meet up, but life circumstances have not been too friendly on that front. So we have a chance this weekend. I can't wait. Like, the USC game is a bucket list, I think, for all Notre Dame fans. It's we don't have to worry about the stadium turning red because you come here every 2 years. So it's not like it's going to be, weird anxiety on campus of a red out, but it's a big game. There'll be legends on campus. I don't think there's a program I have. Like, obviously I hate you guys, but I love you guys, and I don't think there's another program I can really say that about to that extent than USC. So seeing this game is certainly a bucket list for me, and I'm sure you've seen a few Notre Dame games over the years. So what's your perspective on that game and on this rivalry?
Yeah, it's just interesting how, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is like how streaky it is. It just seems like just one team has the conch for long periods of time. I mean, long periods of time. When I first started to go to SC games, I think y'all won like 10 in a row, like going from the late 80s and through 1998 when we broke that streak. And there was a tie in there in 96. But I think Pete Carroll lost to y'all once, and that was it, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it can get pretty rough on both sides of the rivalry from time to time.
Yeah, and I'm hoping this is a new era where it goes back and forth a little bit. Like, obviously, I hope to win every year, but, from a more realistic point of view, a competitive series helps bring attention back to this game. I feel like this game has lost a lot of its, shine or mystique because of the two teams not being at that level. And the example I would use is in 2012 when we played you guys for basically a buy-in to the national championship game. That viewership did something like 15 plus million people that night. Wow. It was by far the biggest game, I think, of the year before the bowl season. Last year, when basically, if you guys beat Utah, you're getting a playoff game if you beat us. And that game generated like 6 million. The viewership has really declined in a sense, and I think that's on both of us. And having us both be good, hopefully with good head coaches. I think Freeman is great for college football, and I think Riley is great for USC, and that makes a great rivalry if you have those two head coaches. So I'd like to get us back to that, and despite our loss, we're still ranked. It's going to be a buzzing atmosphere, and it's a huge game for USC because our defense does look a lot better, and this is an offense that has improved. And I think as much as you're a nightmare matchup for us to play, like I said at the start of the year, USC's the game I'm most worried about, not Ohio State. But I think we're also a bit of a nightmare matchup for you too, because we can run the ball, we can throw it now. Well, last week aside, and we can play defense. So, well, yeah, what are your views on that game? And I know you're going to have some questions for us Notre Dame fans, so we're happy to get into that.
Yeah, when you talk to me about nightmare, the first thing I think about is just the ability you all have to run the ball. And, it's interesting. My running metric doesn't have USC as that bad, but it doesn't really separate out sacks from called runs. So there's a bunch of sack yardage in there that is probably making the disguising just how bad our run defense is, that you really have to see if you're just really that sadistic and want to see bad tackling all around. Let me see here. I have our, by my metric, we're ranked 27th in FBS in run defense. But again, the sack yardage really helps that out. Here's the thing that's concerning to me is our opponents by that same metric or the inverse of it are ranked, composite 106th in all of FBS. The best running team that we played so far was Arizona this last week. And at times it was hard to watch. If you saw that game, the thing it had, for a drunk game, it had the most drunk ending, which is like, hey, we haven't tackled all game. Let's have a linebacker end it on a tackle for loss on a guy that's just pushed us around all game. It made no sense at all. So our ability to stop the run, we've not faced a running attack anything, in terms of the offensive line or Estime, who just scares me. I guess I'm hoping, sorry, Steve, that you guys just do something really stupid and stray. There you go. Jesus, just almost resigned to it. Like it's an inevitability. Geez, poor guy.
Yeah, he's a tortured man. You could see the PTSD on his face.
Yeah,
No, I know what's gonna happen. I'll tell you what's gonna happen. Here's my prediction. Notre Dame's gonna win this game. Notre Dame's gonna go. They're gonna win out. They're gonna go 10-2. They're gonna finish the regular season ranked 8 overall. They're gonna get a large bid to a New Year's Six bowl game. They're gonna be up by 2 touchdowns in the New Year's Six bowl game, and they're gonna fucking lose the game. And it's just and we're just gonna get memed to death by every control account from Michigan, from Ohio State, from US. And I'm just gonna I'm gonna want to jump out a window because just like time is a flat circle. I can't stand it.
To make it worse, we'll get the buy-in to the bowl game that the G5 winner also gets. So we'll lose that way to UCF or whoever is supposed to be good this year in the G5.
I was going to say Fresno, but they just lost.
Yeah, I mean, I like SMU. We snuck them into the ACC somehow, but yeah, that's exactly how the season's going to go, just to get Steve at the end because of the stupid stat that we haven't won a New Year's Six game since 1994. That is ridiculous. Like, how is that even possible? They said Kansas has won one since then and not Notre Dame. Yeah. So that's just the meme now is just Notre Dame just will find ways to lose that New Year's Six game. But whatever.
I guess you don't want the G. I know you don't want the G5 team. Yeah. You do not want that. That's thankless.
Because if you win, you get no credit for it, and if you lose, you get piled on.
Yeah, I'll throw the really nightmare team at you because they're actually good and they can do this because I live and breathe in the G5. If you get Air Force, just look to basketball season. G5 team. America's the military forces. Everybody's gonna be rooting against you. Sorry, but it's so thankless. Great, you beat an academy. You're supposed to, and you hate the troops. Awesome.
Well, I think we know something about playing at a service academy school every year, and it's people act like you've played a high school team, and it's like, well, they're still in the FBS at least. There are, someone will brag about playing Incarnate World and will put you down for playing Navy or Air Force or Army, even though Army's been decent in recent years and Air Force has been good lately. So, yeah, that's a great point. I was gonna say San Jose State because you seem to play them every year and have a little bit of a scare. But yeah. Stanford, of course, for both of us. So yeah, let's get into this game. It's going to be an interesting one. I don't know how we stopped Caleb Williams. I remember that first series of last year where you made Al Golden look like a child calling defensive plays, where it was like there were trick plays going on that I was just giving up on as a fan, being like, just give them 7 points already and give us the ball back. Because it's really challenging to play against that kind of offense. So, yeah, from the USC perspective, what do you need to know from the Notre Dame fans?
Well, I guess really dumb question that you'd say, hey, just Google it, jerk. Is it going to rain? Because that can make a big difference. I've not seen this offense in the rain.
That's a good question. I hope not, as someone who's going to be there, but it would help slow down, I think, the USC offense and maybe take away a bit of Caleb Williams' presence. It is supposed to rain, Steve. Is that right?
As of right now, low of 49, high of 54, and 70% chance of rain. Let me switch over to precipitation. In the morning, mostly, from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., but it looks like it's set to persist all the way until approximately 6:30 p.m. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Until 9 o'clock at night.
Wow.
It'll be a light rain. It's not going to be crazy, but basically all the way through game time, or at least the first half, looks like a light drizzle.
Okay, I had to look up Celsius to Fahrenheit or Fahrenheit to Celsius so I could understand what temperatures we're looking at here.
So if it's 56 degrees Fahrenheit, then that means it's
12 degrees Celsius, which is
okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm fucking with.
Yeah. I always give Americans crap for like still using the imperial system and not the metric system, but a lot of Americans will agree with that, but they'll give me pushback on the Celsius thing. They say Fahrenheit's a more accurate measurement, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
We'll move on with this and we'll push back to Buck here in a second, but I prefer Fahrenheit because just think of it as a percentage. What percentage hot or cold are you? Is it 75 degrees, you're 75% hot. 50 degrees, 50% hot. Perfectly fine system. Americans do it best. On with
I want to hear what Buck has to say about the old metric system and what we should be doing for degrees here.
Well, yeah, I think the football game should be done in meters. First of all, let's just go with that. Just to screw with every stadium that we have.
Meters, I think,
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Yeah.
What's weird is Canada, both the language, the way we write in English is half American, half British, but also the way we use some of these imperial versus metric numbers are the same. Like, we drive in kilometers an hour, right? But I measure myself in feet and inches. Like any other kind of weight is in kilograms, but I weigh myself in pounds. Like it's this weird thing where we can't really pick a side. So it's an unholy mix of both.
Well, we just said that Canada is the Switzerland of North America, right? You just kind of,
we're just
you're neutral in everything. You assimilate all types.
Oh, that's great. So it's supposed to rain, to answer your question.
Okay. Well, that sucks. Thanks for your laughs. Appreciate it, guys. USC's offense, the run offense, I've got them ranked 8th, just in that same metric where I said, the opponents that we faced are 106th cumulatively. We're 8th. Now, we haven't really faced good defenses. The defense that we faced running, since we're talking about a wet game, kind of similar to the other side of the ball, they average 102nd in FBS against the run. So we've not faced good run defenses. That's concerning. Now, how do I say this? If you say bully ball, you think that it's just man ball where you're the baddest ass on the field. And it kind of seems just to some degree like it's more bully ball, like the bully's just the guy that picks on the weakest one in the yard. And I think there might be a little bit of that kind of bully element to our running game where, like, if we're better than you, we will just shove it down your throat. People say that we don't run enough, but okay, great. It's not like you have some stiff at quarterback, put the ball in Caleb Williams' hands. Fine. I'm curious to see what happens when push comes to shove, just how good this offensive line is going to be at running the ball. It's a lot of new guys that, between transfers and one new freshman, that it's going to be a real step up in quality of play here. So with that and the weather, that's going to be a question on offense. The other thing that just blew my mind last week, which it's interesting, each team, as I heard somebody say, is a range of outcomes. And whenever you have a really bad game, you think, well, this is who we are, or we're trending horribly. It can't just be that's your crappy game. I think you all might be in the same spot as that. I don't think you're nearly as bad as the Louisville game. That's probably your low spot. I'm certain of it. But man, what we did on offense, Caleb had to throw a lot of balls away, and credit to him for doing it and not protecting his stats and trying to make something out of nothing. He threw the ball away a lot. Arizona went to, and I'm not a huge scheme guy, but the announcers were talking about the dollar package, which I'm guessing is like 7 DBs. If a nickel is 5 and a dime is 6. And I don't know if this is, going back to how Washington always beat Washington State when Leach was there. They would just drop 8 and hold them to 17 points. And it seemed like a little bit of a reprisal of that. And I don't know if this is just kind of like the unlock to really slowing USC down, or if this is something that completely caught us off guard to get really inside football here. The defensive coordinator at Arizona's, I'm going to be really nice and say I'm not as huge a fan. I don't think he's a great defensive coordinator. I don't think he should be a defensive coordinator. And maybe he just kind of realized I can't coach these guys with talent. I'm just going to do the most unorthodox kind of scheme here and see if it works. And maybe he struggled, maybe it works. And I don't know if you guys would dare be that bold and say, yeah, we're going to go with 7 DBs here, just see if it works, if you can try to do that within a week. But man, that was by far the worst our offensive looked, probably in the whole, well, in more than 12 months. I'll say that for sure. You have that bad game and you don't know are really that bad, but at the same time, when it was really a scheme thing as much as anything, is that something that teams might do to us from time to time and really frustrate us? And do we have a counter for that now that we've actually faced it?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think Notre Dame against Ohio State, they bracketed the receivers a lot to try to make that difficult. I think the game's going to be won and lost, particularly on Notre Dame's defensive line versus USC's offensive line. Like you said, you're not picking on a weak kid anymore. You're going up against a bully that'll punch you back in the mouth. Notre Dame's run defense hasn't been the best this year, but I'd rather keep the ball in front of me than behind me, and I think that's a good way to probably play against USC. They're going to have to spy Caleb or something. They just last year, the amount of times we should have sacked him and just couldn't because he's so elusive and he's so good on his feet. They're going to have somebody, and Steve, this is from the Notre Dame personnel perspective, but I think Jalen Sneed would be perfect for this. Just his athleticism as a linebacker safety hybrid would be perfect, I think, to kind of have on the field. But my fear of just dropping 7 DBs is, well, our run defense hasn't shown to be great like on its own with less than 7 DBs on the field. I would be a little concerned about that, and then you've got to account for Caleb Williams. So I wonder if it's more just, can we find a way to slow them down, try to like disrupt the rhythm, get a turnover, and then it's a race to 40? Or like, what is the Notre Dame, and Steve, I'll pitch it to you, what is the Notre Dame strategy for this game here? Because you haven't looked great in the last 3 weeks, at least on offense. How do you beat USC?
Yeah, you got to drop 6 in coverage and send 5. And if you're not sending that 5th guy, then you just have to have him be a spy on Williams, because obviously we know his elusiveness. That's the only thing that makes sense in my mind, because I think for Notre Dame pass rushers will probably break through this offensive line in about 2.5 to 3.5 seconds. Now that does give Caleb a decent amount of time, but if you drop 6. And if you have that spy basically playing a zone, low in the middle of the field, you're going to at least force him to look to the outside, right? And when you're looking to the outside, then you're basically you're taking one part of the field out of play with Benjamin Morrison. So that's like the only thing that would make sense in my mind. Now, I guess, Buck, and what I'll posit to you here, the thing that drove me absolutely insane, I think it drove obviously every Notre Dame fan insane last year, was just the escapability and the way to, and I think this is what just ultimately makes Caleb just like that guy. Not only is he escapable and extraordinarily elusive in the pocket, but eyes upfield and always making that throw, that one extra throw, or just opening things up, and those chaos plays just crushed us last year. And he was also, now you factor in rain, you factor in, everything into this game. And I looked up, we're anywhere between 13 to 17 mile an hour gusts as well. So I think that is going to have an effect on the deep ball. So everything is probably going to be short to intermediate here, is my preliminary guess. And obviously weather is subject to change. But do you want Caleb crossing the line of scrimmage much, only on a absolute necessary basis? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because a dual threat quarterback has always kind of been the thorn in the side of Notre Dame's defensive performances over the past decade or so. So do you want him even crossing the line of scrimmage at all, or do you just want him to do his thing and play just basically schoolyard ball and hope for a miracle?
Yeah, the answer is all the above, Your Honor. You just, because he can run, you just think, God, there's just 15 yards, just get it. And as soon as anybody's near him, at the same time, you're just screaming, get down. It's definitely two different sides to that coin. But I don't know if just the threat it's going to be enough in this game, because Notre Dame, this is by far the best defense that USC is going to face so far this season, and I just don't think that the threat's going to be enough. He's going to have to make those kind of plays. Now, what's interesting too is, if it's wet, if you've got a quick cutback guy like him, it's not like he's just you have some guys that are less skilled passers that like a Jalen Milroe, he's not a great passer and just he's not elusive as much. It's just like, yeah, he can outrun you. And Caleb's more of a cutback, quick twitch kind of guy. And I wonder how much of that goes away if it's a slick surface. I don't know. I just can we move this back to the Coliseum real quick? I'm not really happy about, yeah, okay, we can. Okay, just have everybody.
Hey, we're welcome to have you on, and you've been too polite, Eva. You're the wrestling heel on this podcast. You can just take it to the Coliseum. You gotta.
Okay. Wow, that's gracious of y'all. Yeah, I don't. That setup just doesn't sound awesome to me. Yeah, I don't know. Now you're just kind of feeling great until this podcast. Thanks, guys.
I don't feel great about this game either, though. So I think it's one where we're all afraid.
One thing that Steve said is about, the offense hasn't looked great the last few games. So the last 3 games, not only as you said, Dylan, they're in prime time. 2 of them on the road. All these teams basically hate you. And I have them, in my defensive ratings overall, Ohio State 3rd, Duke 21st, and Louisville 35th. It's not like, you were struggling against San Jose State and Nevada. You can exhale on this one from an offensive standpoint. Believe me, you're going to be facing a very obliging group of 11 defenders here.
Well, that's good to hear. I think we need it too, just to get into a rhythm again. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, of course. I don't know if you do a positional breakdown, Buck, but again, just advanced analytics and just everything that you do metrics wise. And maybe it's just an eyeball test. How do tight ends fare against USC? Like, how's the middle of the field look, defending the pass against tight ends for that Trojan defense?
Well, I'd say that I might know, but the defense doesn't know because they often are not there. Did you literally, we made Bryant Keithley into a first-round pick in that October game against Utah. Literally had, or no, it's that other guy. God, I forgot his name. Keithley's the guy that's still there. This is the
Dalton
backup
Kincaid.
Thank you. Yes, he had 228 yards. Literally, people that hadn't watched football before, they're tweeting late night Pac-12 after dark. Hey, Dalton Kincaid has a great catch radius. It's like, lady, I follow you because of your recipes. Now all of a sudden, you know that this guy's an all-star tight end. What is going on here? Yeah. It. Again, thank you, Steve. Yeah, just tell your tight ends to warm up. There will be plenty of opportunities for them.
Yeah.
Unless again, like I said, unless you all just go stupid and just try to run right like Bear Alexander, like one of our better guys. Just it's going to be something like that. I think that would be to your detriment.
It seems like we just don't want to score or punch it in on any short distance in third or fourth. You know what I mean? Third and short, fourth and short. We just refuse to get a first down, and we refuse to score in the red zone. And that's what scares me, even though USC's defense is maybe one of the weaker ones we've seen in recent weeks. I just don't know if I can trust this team to just fucking score, Like, it's been so frustrating seeing them play. But it's just crazy because if that game against Ohio State turns out just a little bit differently, right? DJ Brown brings the ball in, although I'm not blaming him for that game at all. There was plenty of chances to win. All of a sudden, our season isn't over, and I'm feeling like we're still top shit. Like, I had us ranked. We collectively, as a biased propaganda podcast, had Notre Dame as the second-ranked team in our pod poll every week for the last, until the Ohio State week, for like 3 weeks in a row. We were like, this is the second best team in the country. And now it's like, I don't want to rank them because they look so horribly bad. And I think that's more the peaks and valleys of Notre Dame fans being way too optimistic and then way too down on themselves. But I don't know. I want to see us get back to it because I would have felt good about this game. But with what I've seen lately, man, we got to play US. Are you kidding me? I don't want to see Caleb Williams paint his fingernails, FND, and then Heisman pose on us again, Like, that was bad enough one year.
Yeah,
Well,
if USC scores 35, which is completely within the realm of possibility, I'm rapidly losing confidence for Notre Dame to score 36.
interesting. Yeah. It's couple points about that. So, in terms of where should Notre Dame be ranked, from a power ratings, which is basically the more predictive, just to say based on your efficiency, how do I peg you against other teams? I have them 7th right now. I mean, look, Washington, Oregon, Ohio State, Miami. Now take their idiot coach out of it because that's a separate discussion. Penn State, Texas, Notre Dame, Michigan. That's elite company that y'all are in.
Stop the
That's
count. You have us ahead of
predictive.
Michigan. We
Yeah.
could stop right there.
Well, okay, sorry. And by the same measure, I have USC 29th. So I don't have them in that top 20 from a predictive standpoint.
Now, do you factor in though, like strength of schedule so far into that and quality of opponent?
It's interesting you say that. It's based on efficiency per play, which is basically your best predictor of future performance that I've learned and hopefully can profit from time to time. But to that point, I just over the weekend, I came up with a strength of record, which is basically saying, okay, based on this team's schedule, the average FBS team would win X amount of games. Then I take the actual versus X, and that's how many plus wins they have. And that's where SC actually comes in at 18th. They've not lost. Sometimes it doesn't look beautiful, but they've not lost. And Notre Dame's at, I think, 25th. They're outside my top 20. You have 2 losses, even though they've had, the ratings of these last 3 games are nuts. The average, and I don't have it super handy, but I think the average FBS team has a 6% chance of beating Ohio State and a 14% chance of beating Duke. Duke is so underrated. I loved them after week 2 of last season. And I actually got mad during my podcast's ACC preview. I got really mad that the over-under on them was 6 wins. I got really upset because it's a little pat on the head. And going back to my proof of concept, they have a big proof of concept. Elko moved that defense up by 10 points on defense, which is a huge, and it just got totally overlooked. Duke, you're cute, pat on the head, go play basketball, whatever. Yep. Thankless task to beat them. That is a good team. And then Louisville, the average team only has about a 30% chance of beating them. Those are 3 tough games y'all have. So even though you lost 2, it doesn't really hurt you in the big scheme of things in terms of strength of record.
Yeah.
The other thing that's interesting, and I actually, I never did this in season because I'm lazy, but I finally did it just for you all because I like you guys so much. If we take the difference between how you actually performed on a per play basis, that's going to get your win expectancy for a game. And then you just take your total amount of expected wins versus your actual wins. That difference is luck. I'm going to call it luck, right? And USC has, in just 6 games, they have 1.3 games of luck, which is 8th in FBS. You all have negative luck, which is interesting. And
that's really interesting. It's not new for us, though.
Okay. So the luck of the Irish is an ironic thing.
That's the thing. People say the luck of the Irish is always meant to be negative because if you look at the history of the Irish people, they weren't very lucky. But anyway.
Yeah. So the one thing I've kind of noticed as I dug in this last off season, there's a big correlation to the caliber of your quarterback play and your luck metric. If you have a crap quarterback, you're going to have bad luck because it's basically those intangibles like to execute, and then your program's just in a bad spot. And Caleb basically had huge luck last season, and this season already they're 8th in FBS. Actually, Riley, as every season that I've actually tracked this, his teams have had good luck metrics because he's a great quarterback coach, and he just, as much as he has problems on the defensive side of the ball, they execute offensively late in games, and I think that's a huge part of the luck metric. So now I'm feeling chesty now that we might actually have a chance here because of the quarterback play that, it gets overlooked. And the co-host of my podcast, he's so much higher on USC because he goes through simulations and he kind of assimilates the magic of Caleb. And I think he actually has this very different, not to spoil it, just interesting how different we are on some games. And this is a big difference between us.
Yeah, if there's anything I've learned with with your co-host is not to bet against him, and that scares me. From the Notre Dame perspective, it's hard to get up for this one. We've taken such a beating, I think, emotionally as a fan base, where this is a huge game, and I hate that it's coming after a loss. I wish we would have beat Louisville, obviously, but if not for nothing, just to have this motivated fan base and team going into this game, because like you said, Caleb Williams is magic. And just to tie that into another thing with statistics in sports, in soccer, football, depending on where you are in the world, and you'll see this in other sports. In football, it's called expected points added, EPA. Well, in soccer, it's XG, expected goals. And you were saying how good quarterbacks are always lucky in that sense. You see that with the best goal scorers in soccer. They always outperform their expected goals because they're magic, right? There's just something to that. Whereas most teams will regress to the mean when it comes to that. 2016 Notre Dame was a great example. They lost like 5 one-score games. They went 4-8. They were not nearly that bad. And the next season, they were in a playoff spot until the Miami game at the end of the season. So most people regress to the mean, but when you're up against Caleb Williams, that's where things get difficult. And that's going to be, I think, the critical part of this game too, is getting pressure to him and trying to get the ball back. Having the ball in our hands will be key to this game.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent analog. Is just it's your striker. Just okay, your expected goals are this, but hey, I'm the better finisher. And same thing is like, last 2 minutes, I'm gonna come through. And like when everybody's nervous, I keep my breathing calm and I execute. Really, really good analogy. I like that. I'm gonna steal that.
Yeah, by all means. Yeah. Well, I like statistics too, and it's actually a good thing P. Wagon didn't make this one, because he's very anti-numbers and anti-analytics in football. But we like to give a different perspective to the listeners who don't hear a lot of this. So that's great. We're at about an hour here, so is there anything else we want to get to before we maybe give out score predictions or whatever, Steve?
Yeah, so before we do finally move on towards predictions of the game, and Buck, you can help us with gambling just to help with our pocketbooks, because I think everyone needs it these days. A question I do have for you, Buck, is it terrifying and or frustrating and or annoying the fact that Audric Estime is Landale White and Reggie Bush is our oh my God, why can't I think of the name at this moment? Dylan, help me.
I have no idea what you're going with here, Steve.
Who's our true friend? Jeremiah Love.
Jeremiah Love, yeah.
Jeremiah Love is our Reggie Bush, and Landale White is Audric Estime, and does that infuriate you in any capacity?
I'm going to be a gentleman here and say your program is better where those guys are not your Reggie Bush and Landale White. Okay. I will nominate the Jerome Bettis and Tony Brooks, and I'll throw the Ricky Waters in there too. Those guys gave me nightmares, man. They were unstoppable.
Yeah, and anytime you bring up Reggie Bush, it's hard to make a credible analogy, right? He was one of the greatest college players ever. And to be honest with you, this might be a hot take for Notre Dame fans. I don't think Audric Estime is our best running back. I've been convinced after the last 2 weeks that the true freshman is a better running back. I think Jeremiah Love is, and I think if anybody's going to be the playmaker in this game, I think he might just bust one, because he is fast.
If he busts one, I will also bust one. That is a vow. But yeah, let's move on to game predictions here, and unless you guys had anything else. So I don't know. Is Notre Dame's favored in this game by 1.5 points or two?
That can't be right. That can't be right after last week.
They actually, it's been bumping around between 3 and 2.5.
Holy dude, is Vegas just really bullish on USC for some reason?
Bearish. Finance.
Thank you. Yeah, he's a lawyer, not a broker. We'll just stay tuned. Before we get to predictions, I want to go back to the whole woe is me. Nobody's going to be excited about this game. I kind of had a working theory, and I kind of saw it about our defense last week, and it's really counterintuitive. this defense is actually it's okay until it's not, and then it just calls it a day. And there's been like this weird kind of contest to see how many points can the offense put on the board before the defense just quits for the day. So I think 9 times out of 10, there will be an opportunity for your fans to totally pick your team up. Even if you're down by 3 scores, we'll give up 2 in a row because we don't just do one. It comes in waves here. The thing that actually might be to your detriment is if it gets to be a scoring, back and forth right out of the gate. Kind of saw that and I was thinking, God, if we think we're great until we fall apart and then we just totally doubt ourselves, I thought, what if we just get in a shootout? And it wasn't a shootout, but we were down 17-0 to Arizona, I think, in the first quarter. And I think that kind of undid the dynamic of like, oh my God, don't lose this. I think it kind of like unshackled the defense, and they actually were very good after that. They gave up, I think, 1 score after that in regulation, maybe to a field goal and a touchdown. So unless we have a weird, uncharacteristic, just back and forth track meet, there will be multiple opportunities for the woe is me fans to get back in it. And I can tell you firsthand, there's confident, and then you're picking up your team versus, oh my God, we're going from so bad to we might bring this team back. When your crowd can be part of the avalanche, that's a very difficult dynamic for the road team that's very shaky on one side of the ball to overcome.
Yeah, well, we saw that last week with our offense in that hostile environment. And that's what sucks. Well, it's great about being Notre Dame is you're everybody's big game, but like literally, like Louisville set an attendance record. Duke had their first ever like college game day there. It is tough when fans can be that difference maker, and we can play spoiler. A loss is not in USC's season by any means. If they win out, they're in the playoff, especially with that schedule. But it would be great. It'd be great to kind of narrow that margin for error, but also just beating them. Just straight up beating your rival is always something to get up for. And I think the team will be up for it. And I think it might take a series or 2 for the fans to believe again and to actually care again, because at the moment it is super depressing. I'm actually handling the Louisville loss fine. It's still the Ohio State one that I'm reeling from, because we deserve to beat Ohio State and we deserve to lose to Louisville. And it just doesn't, my monkey ape brain that has evolved to perceive justice in a certain way and fairness. I don't like that. I don't like the way it is, and it hurts me. But anyway, I think we're going to be up for it. And I think after a series or 2, we'll be up for it. And that's going to make for a really great game because you have a chance to make USC's life hell. And if you can do that for your rival or to your rival, you always take that opportunity. And this rivalry has been based on that, right? Think about how many times we've done this to each other, especially in the McKay versus Era days where it was, one of, if not both of these teams are playing for something and there's going to be a surprise loss here or there. And that's what I love about the rivalry. And we need to get back to that. So hopefully it's a good game Saturday. And I'm thinking it is. I am thinking score predictions. I don't know how often you listen to the show, Buck, but Steve and I have this weird thing going on where we both don't know what each other's predicting. We present it on the pod. We write it down ahead of time. And we're eerily similar to each other. It's got this weird like collective thinking mindset. I don't know what it is, but we'll see if we go like 8 for 8.
Hold on. First of all, 2 things. I doubt that I'm going to agree with you guys. Secondly, this is not a visual medium, and I can see him texting you right now, so you're busted.
No.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
I'm actually so I've been keeping track weekly of the picks. For the record, last week I thought Notre Dame was going to win 34-10.
We were wrong.
Pathetically
You were
wrong.
close. You had a 34 that was accurate. It just wrong way.
So and Buck, I was actually adding you to the sheet here. So congratulations,
Nice.
You made it on. Yeah. So I can't wait to hear your score. But Dylan, how do you want to do this order? Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? I obviously just wrote mine down a moment ago. Or do you want Buck to pick first? It's your call.
I think we should go with our guest first, so our listeners have something positive to hear at the end. But also, he's got a model, and it's definitely worth listening to. So let's hear it out, and then me and Steve will randomly pull numbers out of our ass and be eerily close.
Yes. All right. Well, as I mentioned, I co-host a podcast. As I also said, my co-host's model is very much more high on USC than I am. So I'm just going to use that for some context. He actually has this. Sometimes it gets a little carried away. He has USC winning 69-37.
Nice.
And that. Well, I'm a little skeptical on that. The last
69
3
is
weeks,
a pretty big number.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. He doesn't factor in weather or venue for that matter. So,
right.
Be advised on that. My model has actually been really, really good on USC the last few weeks. USC has been favored by, I think, 21-21 and in the 20s the last 3 weeks against Arizona State, Colorado, and Arizona. And I actually had all those games pretty close, 1-score games. And that's basically where they wound up, 1 or 2-score games. Having said that, my model has this USC 23, Notre Dame 39.
Oh, wow. That's a shock. I didn't expect that. Wow. Okay, so that's what the model says. But what does Buck, the USC fan and alum, by the way,
I would
think of this game?
I would actually go maybe give that 23 sounds a little light to me. Yeah. With all respect to your offense, I would probably I'll stick with the 39. I'll go 39-32. Notre Dame.
For Notre Dame. Wow. Look at unbiased, very reasonable. I can't believe you fit on this propaganda podcast made by Notre Dame fans. Although your answer there will fit really well.
You know what? I'm a real counterbalance to y'all. I'm not like Oppo troll. I'm just like reasonable, dispassionate guy to really just show y'all up. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, you got to come on every week and make us feel better. Steve, I do have my number here. I'm going with something a little interesting, but I want to hear you first.
As am I. Yeah. So I think I'm going counterintuitive to I think most people have been talking about Notre Dame putting up a ton of points in this game. And obviously with Caleb Williams, everyone is going to probably make the assumption that there's going to be some big scoring too. I think it's absolutely going to be a tight game. It's going to be a 1-score game. I just don't think it's going to score that high just because I don't have the biggest belief in Notre Dame's offense right now. And then simultaneously, I also think that the defense with the crowd keeping them in it is going to kind of show up. So this is going to be a little bit lower scoring than expected. But I have Notre Dame winning. There's a surprise. 27-24.
Okay. Interesting. I don't think you've ever picked against Notre Dame on the history of the show, to be fair. And I've picked against us once, and that was when we were playing 2020 Alabama, and we all knew what was going to happen in that game. I have this going to overtime. I think this is going to be an overtime game. For the sake of me being a Notre Dame fan, I'll say Notre Dame 38, USC 34. Like, we stop them, and then we score, I guess, field goal, then touchdown. But I think this is going to be a really tight game, and that gives me hope. That gives me something to cheer for. That gives me a reason to show up in green and, chant, Barry SC or whatever the chants are. That back in the green jersey game, at least 77. I don't think we're coming out in green, but I think there will be a buzz. There'll be magic in the air. It's USC, man. And it not only is it USC, it's USC who's undefeated, nationally ranked in the top 10, and has the reigning Heisman winner. This is not Clay Helton USC. This is Pete Carroll USC. We're getting back to a legitimate playoff contender, and that brings, I think, a little bit of meaning to us regardless of our record. So I'll take a tight Notre Dame win. I'm just hoping for a good game, and I'm just very grateful. And today's Thanksgiving in Canada, by the way, so this is perfect timing. I'm very thankful that we play USC every year. I hope it continues, and I hope the Big Ten move doesn't change that at all, because it is one of the greatest, if not the greatest rivalry in college football. You go ahead. You get...
Hey, can I just interject two things here real quick? And I should have put this at the very top. When you mentioned Clay Helton, you shook loose a thought here. Lincoln Riley is going to be because of just what disarray the school has been in, this is going to be the 6th coach that goes in to coach USC at Notre Dame since 2009. Wow. 6 in 8 games. And guess what? We had one guy that didn't even make it. Sark didn't even make it to Notre Dame.
I remember that year.
How about that? And how about this? The one guy that made it more than once was Clay Helton. Are you kidding me?
Oh.
Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome.
USC last beat Notre Dame, I think, at Notre Dame Stadium in 2011. And I think that was a game Notre Dame should have won as well. It's been a long time. It's been a really long time since you've won there. It's a tough place to play. And we struggle at the Coliseum when you're good. When you're not, we seem to maybe squeak out a win here or there. But it's a home field advantage for sure. And in Notre Dame Stadium, there's ghosts in the air. There's something about that place, as there is the Coliseum. There's these cathedrals in college football that are just anything can happen, and that's what I love about this sport too. Is anything can happen. So I'm looking forward to a good Saturday. Steve, any parting thoughts?
I will admit, USC's marching band's fight song is gas. It's awesome.
Pretty good.
That's
pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
That and this is the fun rivalry. This is the awesome rivalry. Muck Fishigan. But
we can't talk about them on the USC podcast. Fuck that. No way. We're not even gonna dignify them. Screw them.
Yeah, no,
the same way we're not gonna talk about UCLA other than the fact that they're on your schedule, right? They're secondary rivals. They're little brothers. We hate them, but this is the game that matters. Every year, this is the game I circle. Even this year with Ohio State, this is the one I want it to go to, and I think we'll be proven right on that.
Yeah, and I hope that every single year that these two teams play going forward, Lincoln Riley, he does scare me that he's really awoken a beast here. I'll give you some credit here. I think SC is going to put up some college football playoff performances here in the next couple of years. But that's what makes everything about this rivalry fun. So. Yeah, let's hope that we continue to be a top 10 matchup coming in and year out over the next couple of years. But let's just also hope that Notre Dame comes away with the win. Also, would be super cool if we came out in the Trojan horse like back in the 70s. Just saying. But yeah, I mean that's my closing thoughts. Go Irish. And Buck, it was a pleasure to have you. Thank you very much, man.
No, likewise, I enjoyed it. Yeah, and just if I could throw out a plug there real quick, follow me on Twitter at Buck BUCK Metrics. On Twitter.
Awesome. Well, yeah, and Buck, thanks for coming.
Do all the plugging that you want to. Let it rip.
All right. Yeah, the podcast is Lean Toss Up Sports. Just you can follow us on Twitter at Lean Toss Up Sports, and that'll direct you to the podcast. Appreciate that very much. Thanks, guys.
Of course. Yeah, thank you for coming on. It's been 3 or 4 years.
2 years.
We've known each other, and you've been on a few episodes before. So hopefully our longtime listeners appreciate a familiar voice and a friend of the show. And yeah, I'm just trying to think of a good way to end this. Right, it's such a special game. It's going to be great. I could always end it on a Lou Holtz joke. I'm sure I've done this every time you've been on the show. But as he said once at a pep rally, do you know why football players go to USC?
Yeah, give it to me, Jerry. Go ahead. Right in the face. Go ahead.
Because it's easier to spell than UCLA.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Also, fuck Ryan Day, man. He's an 85-year-old man who coached at Notre Dame. Like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Wow.
He's a national treasure, goddamn. Anyway, appreciate everybody listening. Go Irish, beat Trojans, but, more than anything, the Jeweled Shillelagh forever.